Hi there. In today's conversation, we'll be talking data, how we use it, what makes good data or bad data, and why it's important to be able to engage with it critically. We want to talk about this because data is a concept that's often misused by all of us, journalists, researchers, policymakers, and each of us every day. Using poor data or misusing data can weaken its meaning and also can dilute potential benefits, especially when looking at how data can be used to inform policies, programs, and research. So firstly, what is it? According to the Oxford Dictionary, data is a noun that refers to facts or information, especially when examined and used, to find out things or to make decisions. So this broad meaning of data suggests that everything can be data, from formal surveys or analytics, through to a social media post or a chat with a neighbour, can be used to find out certain things or to make decisions. But when we want to actually use or rely on it, we realise that not everything is good data. We need to know how to use our critical minds and have basic numeracy and literacy in order to prevent us from using flawed information. So we've brought in an expert to talk about data, one of our CRIS members, Dr Matteo Vergani, who's going to talk to us about what is good data. Matteo, can you tell us how we can distinguish between good and bad data, particularly when we're looking at social and political issues?
One could be tempted to answer good data is true and bad data is false. Look, concepts like absolute truth and factual objectivity are often impossible to reach, especially in the social and political sciences. And there are multiple reasons for this. First of all, the same act of collecting information for research purposes affects somehow the social and political environment and changes it. Secondly, our categories of analysis are often a reduction of complexity, of personal experience, thoughts, and force many different individual differences into predetermined boxes. Third, the personal bias of the researchers and of the stakeholders, let's think for example of funders, somehow affect the process of formulating and answering a research question and affect the process of making decisions based on the answer to that question.
So, should we give up looking for facts and truth? If some degree of subjectivity is unavoidable and pure objectivity unreachable, does that mean that all data is biased in some way?
Look, it really depends. So some people would say yes, other people would say no. My answer is definitely no. So we should always strive to obtain the most unbiased information we can. Biased and unbiased information should be seen as two extremes of a continuum. Less bias, the better data we have, because less subjective data will allow us to make decisions that benefit a greater diversity of people and places.
Okay, so how do we tell what better data is though? For instance, if I'm reading a story in the newspaper and there are a range of different data sources mentioned there, the witness to an incident, an academic with expertise on the subject matter, a random person on the street who's been asked their opinion, and a community organisation working in the area, how do we determine which information is worth trusting?
Reputation is surely a quick method to decide who we trust. However, if we have more time, I would suggest checking on Google what type of research these people and organizations published, when and in which context. Many times organizations claim they have done research on a certain topic, but if you dig, you might find they haven't really done good quality research, just some unsystematic, quick and dirty data collection. Or maybe they have done some research, but a long time ago, and they never updated it. So if you dig, you will be surprised how many people claim that they know about a certain topic, but they actually don't.
Okay, so who do you believe is best suited to produce better data then? Or, from your perspective, how do you think we can produce better data?
Many professions produce data and sell it as facts. For example, journalists do when they search for information to cover a story. Marketing and research companies do when they look for information about people's attitudes and behavior. However, I believe academics are best suited to produce better quality data and get closer to facts.
Okay, so explain to me why academics are best suited to produce better quality data.
This is because of blind peer review and ethics. Academics are strongly incentivized to publish their work in journals that require a blind, usually double, peer review, which means that other academics, experts of the field, will scrutinize their methodologies and their data and provide anonymous feedback on their work. Often, a requirement is to upload raw data, which imposes self-regulation on manipulative practices and bias. Academic researchers also have to undergo a rigorous ethics process. So they have their methods and research design approved by a committee that assesses them against a set of values. For example, is research worthwhile? Is research independent, unbiased, and does it minimize harm to its subject?
So then, how do we know what is the best methodology to answer a research question?
There is high variability in data produced by academic researchers and other research professionals. The best way to assess the quality of data is to assess the methodology used to collect it. So I would suggest a very simple two-step process to identify a good methodology. So first, just search on Google Scholar. Search the name of the methodology, search the name of the scholar who developed the methodology, and see how many results come up. Secondly, I would suggest to get an independent assessment from at least two academics with a good reputation who use different methodological approaches.
Can you talk to us about quantitative and qualitative approaches?
So quantitative and qualitative methods are often presented as alternative approaches, but they are in fact complementary. We can use them to explore different research questions in different contexts. Here's an example. So quantitative methods can be used to develop hypotheses about a certain phenomenon and to explore subjective experiences. Quantitative methods can be used to test whether the hypotheses hold in a broader population and to test for causality. We can put this into practice using an example of wanting to study how effectively we can reduce hate against Muslims in Australia. So qualitative methods could be useful to formulate a hypothesis. So a first step could, for example, be to study the language of people who hate Muslims on social media and describe the main narratives used to justify hate against Muslims. The analysis could suggest, for example, that people who hate Muslims have many misconceptions and low knowledge of Islam and believe in numerous conspiracy theories about Muslims. This could help to formulate the hypothesis that people who hate Muslims are less knowledgeable about Islam. We could then, based on this hypothesis, design a survey to assess the level of factual knowledge of Islam via a quiz that asks factual questions about Islamic religious practices and concepts, and levels of hate, for example, using standardized questionnaires. We could then collect data using a representative sample of the Australian population, and this study could allow us to test whether, on average, people who have lower levels of knowledge of Islam have also high levels of hate against Muslims. If the data supports the existence of a relationship between these two concepts, knowledge of Islam and hate against Muslims, we could then formulate a subsequent hypothesis about causal mechanism. For example, we could hypothesize that teaching people about Islam as a religion can reduce their level of hate against Muslims. To test this hypothesis, we could, for example, design a randomized controlled trial where we invite high school students living in an area characterized by high interreligious tensions to attend school activities during a Friday afternoon for a semester. Half of the students, randomly selected, will be invited to attend a course about Islam. The other half, the control group, will be invited to attend a course about natural sciences, so something different. We will then measure, on average, levels of hate against Muslims before and after the semester in both groups, assessing whether hate decreased in the group that attended the course about Islam as compared to the control group. This will allow us to test whether increasing knowledge of Islam via an educational course reduces average levels of hate against Muslims among these high school students. Finally, follow-up qualitative interviews with students who attended the course could reveal the individual experiences of attending the course, the subjective narratives associated with attitudes change, and the new meanings attached to Islam and Muslims that they gained.
Thanks, Matteo. This has been a really helpful discussion and explanation of how, if we want to be able to distinguish flawed data from good data and make good decisions, all of us are compelled to raise our critical thinking skills. And you've provided some really helpful examples for that. Having a basic but solid understanding of research methodologies is very important for students, policymakers and practitioners working in social policies and interventions, as it can help to understand what good data is and how it's useful. We hope you found this video useful. Thanks!